Thank goodness for all the medicines that extend our lives. My doctor has me taking Lipitor. He says these little pills might keep me from having a heart attack. Great. But what if I had cancer and wanted one of those new experimental medicines that might cure my cancer? Then the government can say, no, you can't have it. We haven't approved it yet. Or worse, what if I were in horrible pain? What if I were dying? Again, government can tell me, no, you can't have any more painkiller. And that makes me ask the question, what's government doing in my medicine cabinet anyway? I would think I own my body, but I clearly don't. The government gets to decide what products I'm allowed to ingest, what medications my doctor's allowed to give me. It's all for our own good, our own safety. And at first, I thought this made sense. I can't judge the safety of all those drugs in the world, all the God knows what the drug companies might want to sell me. They once sold Coca-Cola with cocaine in it. That's why we now have the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. Its charge is to make sure every drug is, 1, safe, and 2, effective. Seems reasonable. They had their first big success years ago when they protected America from thalidomide. Do you remember it? It's a tranquilizer. Some women took it during pregnancy and then gave birth to kids with no arms or no legs. Newspapers called them thalidomide babies. Few were born in America because the FDA hadn't approved thalidomide. It wasn't that the FDA was so smart. It was just so slow that the bad effects were seen in other countries before thalidomide could clear the approval process here. So I'm glad they protected us from thalidomide babies. That's my first reaction. But now I have to ask, is it worth it? I don't think so anymore. Because government, by protecting us from bad things, protects us from good things too. And that's much more harmful. Since the thalidomide success, the FDA has grown even bigger and more bureaucratic. Now to get a new drug approved, the drug company has to spend $1 billion on tests. And again, my first instinct is to say, good, let's be safe, better safe than sorry. But think about it. Some years ago, the FDA held a press conference. They announced, we're approving this new heart drug. This beta blocker will save 14,000 American lives a year. Now, nobody stood up at the press conference to ask, you know, that's great, but didn't that also mean you killed 14,000 people last year and the year before that? It did mean that. 14,000 people died every year all the way back to when they first came up with the drug. But we don't normally think that way because we can easily see the problem. But it's impossible to see who might be saved by a new drug. And we in the media make it worse because we take a picture of the victim of the drug. But the person who would be saved by the yet-to-be-approved heart drug could be you. But I don't know whose picture to take. So, 2 choices, quick approval or be really careful. There is risk either way. But the bias is against approving something new. Suppose you're an FDA bureaucrat. If you approve something that hurts someone, you're in big trouble. But if you just delay something that might save 1,000 lives, you're just doing your job. And the thousands of people you kill won't even know it was you who killed them. So yes, we want protection, but we ought to be aware that it comes with a cost. And that brings me back to that question. Who owns your body? What if you're dying? Even if your life is at stake, our government says you may not experiment on yourself. 10-year-old Anna Tamales rode horses, played with her sisters, dressed up for Halloween, until one day a few years ago she got sick. Antibiotics didn't help.
Nothing worked and it just got worse, actually. And now you have to pick from here.
Her doctors did an MRI.
They see some kind of like mass that's shaped of like a grapefruit.
Anna had surgery and chemo, but they didn't work. So Anna's mom searched the web and found an experimental drug that had extended the lives of some patients with Anna's kind of cancer. But because the drug hadn't been approved by the FDA, Anna could not get it.
It's very difficult to tell a 12-year-old child who is dying from cancer that there is a drug out there that she's not allowed to have.
Likewise, Abigail Burroughs, who had head and neck cancer, couldn't get a drug called Erbitux, even though it showed promise in stopping those tumors. Months later, she died.
She was out of options.
Her father, Frank Burroughs.
4.5 years after she died, the drug was approved for head and neck cancer. That is ridiculous.
When I talked to Anna 2 years ago, she and her family hoped to shortcut that process.
For Anna, time is running out. She does not have years to wait.
The Tamaleses went to Congress to beg for help, to no avail. The FDA wouldn't budge.
The reason we are here is that everything is not fine at the FDA.
Others held noisier protests. This group was upset that the FDA wouldn't let men with prostate cancer try an experimental drug called Provenge because it might have bad side effects.
Side effects? Who cares? Every treatment I've had, I've suffered from side effects. If I am terminal, it should be my option to endure any side effects.
But it's not his option, any more than it was Abigail's or Anna's. Terry Toigo of the FDA.
There's this underlying assumption that the drug that they want to take is actually going to help them.
It might not, but it's their body.
But we'll never learn about the drug.
28,000 women who might have benefited from the drug Tykerb died of breast cancer waiting for its approval.
Women are dying all of the time from breast cancer, and not having access to one particular drug, you can't just say that that's the reason they've died.
Why are you even involved? Butt out, bureaucrats. Let people try things. It's their body.
We don't think that's the best system for patients. Even when people are dying, there are risks to taking experimental drugs.
I think it's just silliness. I can't even be the person who's experimented on it. And I think that's unfair.
I mean, they say it might not help you.
Well, we don't know until we try.
Anna was not allowed to try. She died a few months later. It's natural to think that without the FDA, we'd have this horrible free-for-all where none of us could rely on the safety of medications we take. But we only think that because once government steps in with its monster powers to take over an activity, in this case drug approvals, it's natural to think that only government can do it. But that's not the case. As a thought experiment, let me propose an alternative. Two alternatives. First, why aren't the FDA's rules voluntary? Then big drug companies, which want to sell lots of pills, would go through the 15-year review process to get that FDA stamp of approval, and those of us who are cautious would only take those FDA-approved pills. But if you were dying, you could try something. You could try an experimental treatment without having to go to some dubious clinic in South America, or break your country's laws by secretly importing pills from Europe. It's your body. Why do we in our free society meekly stand by and let our government say to us, no, you may not put that in your own body?